Okay, by popular demand, here is my gift to everybody. So you're welcome in advance. And we're unveiling the spin playoff bracket the way that it should be. The CFP bracket the way that it should be. So we'll pull that up on the screen here. And as you'll see, we just went off of the last rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee. And we've got Oregon in 1. You see at the top there, and then we've got Georgia 2 down there in the bottom middle, and Texas, and so on and so forth. So, but what was really cool about this was the proposal from us was 2014 playoff, and this is what it would look like. So that first round, that first round would have been played during championship week. So you'd have had Clemson and BYU, Boise State and UNLV Part 3. It's not perfect, but that's what it would have. That's how this would have shaken out. Then you get to Miami, Illinois, Arizona State, Syracuse, and I feel like right here at the bottom of the bracket, we get South Carolina, Iowa State, SMU, Colorado, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Alabama, Army. That would set up some really cool second round games. I would be projecting Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State would be cool. You'd probably get. Who knows if you get Colorado or SMU versus Tennessee. Tennessee would be a heavy favorite. But South Carolina, I think, would end up playing Georgia. And you'd have probably Arizona State playing Notre Dame. Miami, Penn State would be a good one. Boise State, Indiana, that'd be probably a really great game. And, Clemson or BYU against Oregon, and that would be your second round games. And so then what you would do is you would take the losers of those first round games, you would send them into basically an NIT, and then that NIT would reseed the NIT, and they would be playing in the same weeks as the big tournament. So you could figure that out. Maybe that's a Friday, Saturday type of deal. I'm sure college football, the powers that be, could figure that out. But if you look at this, I think this would be a heck of a lot more entertaining and fair. If you look at the way that the bracket broke this year, Oregon, ended up they've got Tennessee, Ohio State, and Texas all on their side of the bracket. And here, the way that it breaks is Oregon they would have had a Penn State, Notre Dame, or Indiana as the four. Those would be the four auto seeds there. And then on the bottom half of the bracket, you'd have Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Ohio State. So it's almost the reverse of what actually happened. And the reason that it happened in reverse, this just shows us that they manufactured equity. They tried to manufacture bringing the bottom teams up, and that ended up shaking up the bracket to where the one seed is basically the hardest path. And so I think that this year is probably an anomaly if they don't make a change by next year. But this right here, I think, would be college football fans. This would be something to be excited about. Again, 24 team playoff. There's no reseed needed here in the championship bracket, the playoff bracket. But then you'd reseed all the losers of this game, and they would go. And then they would play, obviously, so ranks 25, which was Memphis, and then you would have all the way to 32. That's why you would mix those with the losers of these games and reseed them. So the playoff committee would meet right after the first round, reseed the teams for the second round in the NIT bracket. They would reseed them, and then they would play. And again, I'm saying home games, campus games, on-site, all the way through the quarterfinals. Preferably, honestly, I feel like the NFL's already taught us the model, and it works as home games all the way through until the Super Bowl, until the national championship game here in this case. And I think that would be perfectly acceptable. But I know there's an alliance with the Bulls. The Bulls still want to be involved because they make a lot of money on these things. And so, you might have to allow them to sponsor, maybe they take over the campus games and sponsor the campus games or whatnot. So a lot of those are big advertising deals and venue deals, but those have to get figured out. But I think fans are going to get tired of traveling. I think you're already going to see it coming up this year in the playoffs. You're going to see in-game attendance start to dip, and it's fatigue. It's just a lot of money on the fans to be able to travel and go to these games. And I think the writing's on the wall, and I think eventually we're going to have to go to all on-campus games until the national championship game. I just think that would be a lot more exciting for everybody involved. And so, your higher seed, your reward is you get home games and a possibility of in this scenario, we have 2 home games, but it'd be cool to have like a possibility of 3 home games in a scenario. And I think that this would settle so much more on the field. I don't think you would have any sort of gripes about, who's in really and who could win the national championship. I said this before. I said, these teams should be judged on their upside. And so I look at Alabama, I look at Ole Miss, I look at South Carolina, and I see teams in there that could make deep runs in the playoffs that are out right now. And I see teams that are in the current format, SMU, namely, that lost their conference championship game. And it's like, really? You think that they really could make a deep run into the playoffs? I just don't think so. And that's not a knock on SMU. I'm a Rhett Lashley fan. I think he's a fantastic coach. I just don't think that giving them a chance to be in just based on them not losing they're not winning. I'm sorry. Say that again is they had kid gloves put on them about the conference championship game. And so to artificially just make sure that they made the playoffs because we wanted to send a message that it was okay, that you weren't going to be punished for a bad performance or for losing a conference championship game. That's where the rub is with me. Alabama played a much more brutal schedule. South Carolina played a much more brutal schedule. Ole Miss than SMU did, and I would take all 3 of those teams ahead of SMU in a head-to-head or whatever the metric is. And so, I think if you want a strong playoff, you've got to certainly move to some sort of model. The way that this one looks to me is the right way to go. Everything's going to have its flaws. Every playoff suggestion is going to have some sort of flaws. But I think if you look at this would be, I don't think fans would have much to gripe about, and this would be an exciting format. I think we'd have a lot of really cool first-round games. I'd love to hear what some of the sports books would have on these games right here. But there you go. So, again, this would be the 2014 College Football Playoff brought to you by Sports Idol Nation. And we can dream. And that's what we're here to do. Is just hypothetical, but we can dream, and this would be a really good format. So, all right, that was a quick segment. Just wanted to bring this up for you guys, for you dreamers. Let's lobby for it. Let's get a 24 team / 32 team or NIT. 16 to the NIT, 16 in the or 24 in the championship bracket. You start with 24, but then it goes to 16, and let's get that done. College Football Playoff Committee. Oh, we'll have one last thing is we're going to have Brandon Huffman on the show on Friday. We're going to talk the transfer portal craze. We're going to talk high school recruiting, how that's being affected by the transfer portal. There's a lot of reports out there that the junior colleges are filled up. Now with these 105 roster limit spots, what does that look like? A lot of people feel like this is starting to hurt high school football, and I think these are some questions we're going to ask. We're going to talk to Brandon Huffman, who's in this every day, the national recruiting czar. He is fantastic. He knows so much. He knows way more about recruiting. He's forgotten way more about recruiting than I know and most of us. And so we'd love to get his input on that, any intel that he has on the portal, where people are going. I'm sure we'll touch on the coaching carousel a little bit and the craze that's going on there. Sacramento State sounds like they're hiring UNLV's OC, which is a fantastic move in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of good hires starting to happen, but we're going to see some things shaking out. If you didn't hear the news, Mike Norvell gave back $4.5 million of his salary next year. And one of the things that has been talked about is the salaries of the college coaches versus the players is out of whack and out of alignment. And we wonder if we're starting to see a shift in those coming back into line. And so at the end of the day, the players are going to end up getting paid more, as they should. But where does this shake out in college football? And I think we are just in the most interesting time ever watching this Wild West of NIL. It's wide open. There's tampering. There's allegations. It's kind of like, what a time to be a college football fan. If you've been one for a while, you're just looking at this, and this is just complete and utter change. Just like, I'd liken this to like when the internet came out, right? Like this is such a massive change for people to get their head around. And you just sit back, and historically, we're going to be looking at this as being like, man, can you believe that was happening back in the day? Could you believe that this was happening back in the day? And so we'll talk with Brandon about all these things on Friday. For Sports Idol Nation, I'm Josh Rodriguez, First and 10 podcast. Thanks for joining in, and we will see you next time.